Hey everyone, welcome back to another Market Disruptors video series. Today we are going to talk about trust and how trust is the key for us making huge gains with the technology boom that's coming with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So today we are going to talk about trust. Now I know trust might not sound like an investment tool, but as you know, I'm a big believer in studying history, learning about trends, because the trends is really what's going to tell us what's going to happen in the future. So we want to position our investments with trend, right? We talk about that, the trend and the trends within the trend. So today we're going to talk about trust and how the trust trend is actually the key for us making huge gains. So stick with me here. So first of all, you probably don't think about trust a whole lot. It's not something that people spend a lot of time to think about, but really trust is a very vital component for our society. You probably don't realize, like I said, you don't put a lot of thought into it, but without having trust, a society really can't function smoothly. I mean, imagine a society without a rule of law where you couldn't trust someone to follow the laws. You couldn't trust somebody to uphold the laws, right? Imagine having a society where you had to conduct trade and commerce, sales, but you couldn't trust the person. You couldn't trust the quality they're going to provide you. You couldn't trust, right? All those things with trust. So trust is actually a very, very important piece of society. Now, it's also what's considered a public good. Now, a noted sociologist, Giovanni, here that I mentioned up on the screen, he says that if there was no trust, that cooperation would end and fabric as a whole would collapse, all right? That's how important it is. It's a public good. So in order for the good of the public, in order for us to operate as a society, we have to have trust. But the problem is that trust is breaking down. And it's been breaking down for a long time. Trust in other people has sharply declined. As a matter of fact, since the 70s, it's been almost on a straight downward decline. And it's reached historic lows in 2012, was some of the latest studies that I've been able to find. And actually confidence in our institutions, the banks, the government, the schools, they've hit an all-time low as well. I mean, adults are reporting this, even high school seniors are also reporting this. And we also see it with, increases in poverty and crime, where areas where there's lack of trust, and there's also lower lack of confidence and trust in institutions there as well. So we're really seeing trust broken down across all levels of society, really making a dramatic drop. A recent report that was done here, a research study that was done by Gallup, which is Gallup is a very big company that does polls on all types of things, a lot of political polls, but they did one and they said that only 30% of Americans trust schools, the medias, or banks. Only 30%. I mean, that is a small number. Imagine that, right? You would think it would be a much higher number, but 30% of Americans trust schools, the media, or banks. But it's not just America. We're seeing these same trends happening globally. And right, we talk about these global trends and Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, investments, they're a global thing, right? So we can't just think locally. We have to look at global trends. And we talked about shifts that are happening in Europe and Germany. But even with trust, this is reported in America, but we're seeing this happen across the whole world. And really, like I said before, this is about a 40-year downtrend that's happening. And the reason why that's important to understand this is a 40-year downtrend is a lot of people think it's because the internet, that information is fractionalized now, that we're getting all kinds of fake media from the internet. We don't know who to trust. But it hasn't just happened since the internet, over the last 10 or 15 years. This is a 40-year downtrend of trust. And really what it shows is that, without trust, there's just significant consequences, right? We're seeing all these institutions that were really built up at the end of World War II, that society has kind of put up as a pedestal, things that we would look forward to trust, like I said, like the governments or the banks, and really it's all falling apart, all right? And it used to be kind of like a fringe thought, like maybe you were like a tin hat where, right, you were a conspiracy theorist, and if you were paranoid about schools and banks and media, and what are the schools teaching our kids, and what are the banks really doing with our money, and what is the media really trying to brainwash us? And really that was kind of like tin hat wearing, conspiracy theory paranoia, but today it's not. I mean, today it's not a fringe belief, and now, most of mainstream media is actually catching on to this, or I shouldn't say mainstream media, but a mainstream belief is all catching on to this. And the reason why is because we see it all over. I mean, think about money is the most important aspect of most people's lives. I don't think it should be, but it is. Money is something that is very important. We put a lot of time into. And where is all your money? It's in the bank. And we trust these banks, right? We trust these banks with our life, with our money, to do the right thing, to take care of our money, to protect our money, to give us our money when we need it. We trust the bank for all these things. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you give your money to the bank, they legally have that money now. And what you have is an IOU. The bank owes you money now. It's not your money anymore. They owe you money. And it's a big difference. And so you trust them that they're going to give you the money, but we're losing trust in banks. And you can see from this slide right here, just in the last week or two, Wells Fargo paid $575 million to settle claims. And what's interesting about this isn't what they were found to be guilty of, and this wasn't what the judge ordered them to pay. No. They paid $575 million to sweep it under the rug. They basically paid these regulators to stop investigating them. So the investigators said, hey, if you pay us $575 million, we'll just walk away and we won't even dig. And that's what they did. And this is coming just 2 years off of them paying almost $200 million to settle basically the same types of claims. They've been creating fake, phony accounts. They've been making customers that have accounts buy products that they didn't sign up for. So you probably get these statements from Wells Fargo or your bank and you see all these charges and you don't know what they're for. This is what's been going on. They're fraudulently charging you and they don't get in trouble. They get a slap on the wrist. $590 million. That's nothing. They made billions of dollars of profit. So anyway, we're losing trust in the banks. We're losing trust in the media. I mean, today, the newspapers, the mainstream media, television news, network news, readership has dropped really down. And today a lot of people get their news from media, social media, Facebook, Twitter, things like that. But we've lost trust in media. We can see earlier this year, Facebook had this massive scandal with Cambridge Analytica. And basically they were selling all of your private data. If you use Facebook, your private data, they were selling it to be used against you. They were found out to be running experiments on their users where they would show you different types of news to see if they could affect your mood. Could I make this person act this way if I only show them this stuff? Could I make this person act this way if I only showed them this stuff? That's what they're doing. We've lost trust in it. It's came out in the public. And then again, we just found out a couple days ago or a week ago that now they've been actually giving their users data to lots of their big clients like Spotify, Netflix, Yahoo, Amazon. And not just your data, but giving them all your private messages so they could read your messages, see what you're talking about, so they could use that data against you. So we've lost trust in banks. We've lost trust in media, and for good reason. They're giving us reason after reason to lose trust. Everything requires a trusted third party. That's the way that our society's been set up. And it's because we don't have a better option. So if I'm face to face with you, and I want to take a good from you, I can hand you cash, you can hand me the product. So there's not a lot of trust that's required there, right? It's like a one-to-one transaction and it's happening. But what happens when it has to happen over space or over time? If you're not directly with me, I can't trust you. And think about those movies like a drug deal or whatever, and they're like, hand me the package. No, hand me the money. No, hand me the package. And they don't even trust each other at an arm's length transaction. So when you want to do transactions over time and space, over distance, you have to have a trusted third party, right? So think about like Facebook. Facebook is a trusted third party. So I upload my photo to Facebook, you download my photo from Facebook, but we're trusting Facebook to be in the middle, to be that trusted third party, to hold my data and share it with who I want to share it with, right? We're trusting that bank. So if I wanted to send you money across state or across the world, I would have to send the money to your bank, which your bank would then get the money from my bank and then get it to you. So that's a trusted third party, right? If we want to buy a house, instead of me giving you the money and then you give me title to the house, I use escrow. And escrow would be a trusted third party. So everything that we have in our society requires this use of a trusted third party. So we're always putting our trust in this third party. But as I just demonstrated with Wells Fargo, with Facebook, these third parties can't be trusted. They've proven over and over and over again that they can't be trusted. But that's the way it is until now. This is the secret. Until now, we finally have a technology for the first time in history that allows us to conduct business, to transact money, information, intellectual property, smart contracts, all without requiring trust from a third party, all right? So I'm going to talk about two things. First of all, Bitcoin, decentralized cryptocurrencies, not all cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and decentralized cryptocurrencies, Ethereum, a few others, are what we call permissionless. All right, so this is the first piece, permissionless. So think about this. In order for this to work, it has to achieve consensus. So we have all these different computers around the world. We call them miners or nodes, and they all hold that database. And if I want to transfer my asset from my account to your account, all the nodes have to achieve consensus. And typically what would happen is in a network like that, in order to join the network, I would need permission. I would have to be given credentials. I would have to be given some sort of like an API key or something like that. That's how the internet works today. But the way that Bitcoin works is anybody can join the network. I don't have to have permission. I can download any number of hundreds of wallets right on my phone, and I can just have Bitcoin right in my wallet. I could set up a node or a server at my house and nobody has to give me permission. Nobody has to give me credentials. And the reason why that's important is because if somebody has to give you permission, then they're controlling who has access to it. So for the first time, we have something that is permissionless, right? And it avoids all these unnecessary costs. It's also what's democratizing this, right? Like I said, because if it required permission, then someone could choose who gets permission. So Bitcoin, decentralized cryptocurrencies are permissionless, all right? And then the big thing is Bitcoin is trustless. And this is the big piece because that's what we're talking about today. I have established how important trust is for a society to work. I've established how trust has been breaking down. And today, everything in society requires us to trust a third party. But as we've seen time and time again, the banks, Wells Fargo demonstrates over and over again that we can't trust them. Facebook demonstrates over and over again that we can't trust them. We've seen Experian. Experian holds all your credit data and they were hacked. It was the largest hack in history. These trusted third parties that we trust, we can't trust them and our information, our data is going everywhere. And so Bitcoin, decentralized cryptocurrencies give us permissionless and they give us trustless. But let me explain what that means. At the end of the day, we have to trust something. We have to trust someone. But instead of trusting one centralized third party, instead of trusting Facebook, what happens is we spread the trust out. So it doesn't actually eliminate the trust, but what it does is it minimizes the amount of trust that I have to give to any single person. And it distributes that trust. So as I said, and I have other videos, if you want to know more about this, leave a comment down below. By the way, you know I answer every single comment in my videos. I love to have discussions. So if you want me to dig in deeper, leave a comment below. The way Bitcoin works is that it's a network. There's hundreds, thousands of computers and nodes spread everywhere, and they have to achieve consensus. So what happens is I don't have to trust one of those computers to verify. I'm trusting that a consensus will be reached across all of them. So even if somebody were to take control of a handful of these or even a great number of these, they wouldn't be able to take over the majority of the network. All right. And so I'm not trusting one person. I'm trusting that the network is decentralized enough and will find consensus. And there's a number of things that help this. One is this game theory that's been put into place. And Bitcoin created this. It was ingenious. And they put this game theory where these miners that are processing transactions get rewards. And so they're incentivized to act correctly in the network. And so instead of trusting one single person like Wells Fargo or Facebook, now I'm trusting this open, permissionless, trustless system. And another reason why it's trustless is we don't really have to trust it because it's all open. It's all open source. Everybody can look at the code. Everybody can verify exactly what's going to happen. And so it minimizes the trust. Now, That's not to say that that's not to say that decentralized cryptocurrencies, and that's not to say that Bitcoin is perfect. It certainly isn't, not today. I think it'll get there, but as I've talked about many times before, it's a brand new technology. And when you invest in a brand new technology, it's a lot different than investing in any other asset, right? Way different than investing in gold that's been around for 5,000 years. I'm talking about a new technology, and technology cycles follow 4 phases. I have videos that I've done about that, so look at my other videos, the 4 phases of technology cycles. But it's not perfect today. It's going to get there, but it's going to take time. But, one of the big things that people say with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies today is that they're too slow, they'll never scale, they're too volatile. Why would anybody want to use them? Why not just use, Venmo or PayPal, right? So we hear all these things, and they're right. Those are all things that are wrong with Bitcoin and decentralized cryptocurrencies today. They are too slow. You're right. They are volatile, but they have advantages as well, right? So yes, they're slower. Yes, they're more volatile. However, they're also resistant to seizures. They're immutable. They can't be taken. They can't be frozen. They can't be stolen. If I want to send it to you, nobody can stop it, block it, or prevent it. If I have it in my account, it can't be frozen, seized, or stolen. And the supply isn't continually inflated, making what I have worth less and less and less. The dollars, even though no one's taking them from you, it happens all the time, but if no one's taking your dollars, they are actually being taken away, because every time they print more dollars, it makes your dollars worth less. That's also theft. Inflation is theft as well. So crypto has those advantages. It's seizure resistant, censorship resistant, it's immutable, it's decentralized, it's inflation resistant. So it's definitely got its cons, but it's got its pros too. So the question is why? Why crypto? It's not what. I've already kind of explained what, but why, knowing these shortcomings, knowing that it has problems scaling, knowing that it's slower, why would we want to use it? Well, because if you focus on the inefficiencies, if you focus on the problems, you're missing the whole point. The whole point is that we need trust. Trust is broken down. We can't trust the trusted third parties that we have today. So what are we going to do? Well, we have a brand new technology. For the first time in human history, we have a technology that allows us to minimize trust and go into a trusted environment, trustless environment, a permissionless environment. And so you need to focus on what it's doing right, not what it's doing wrong. It's kind of like if you were trying to explain YouTube to somebody, and they might think that YouTube is just a worse form of TV. I'd rather watch TV because now it's, professionally put together and curated, where YouTube is just a bunch of whatever, but you can't really compare the two. There's different reasons why you would want to use both mediums, right? Really, at the end of the day, you have to look at, they're just trying to prioritize different options. So with Bitcoin, with decentralized cryptocurrencies, they're prioritizing the reason why is decentralization, is immutability, is censorship resistant. They're not trying to prioritize speed over that. So immutability, censorship resistant is the most important piece. Speed will come later, as opposed to some cryptocurrencies that are not decentralized, and they are saying, hey, we're fast, but we're not censorship resistant. So it's very important. You have to understand exactly which cryptos you're buying, and you want to make sure they have that distinction. Now, we are seeing a significant uptake in certain areas where these priorities are really important, and really finance is a big piece of that. So when you talk about censorship resistance, immutability, finance is a great place, right? Of course, you don't want your money stolen, seized, whatever. And so finance is a great place to do that. Now, in finance, right, we've traded throughput, we've traded speed for censorship resistance, right? So I'm okay having it work slower if it can't be seized or stolen. It's kind of like gold, right? If I have gold bars sitting in my safe, it's pretty slow. If I need that money, I'm going to have to get them, and I'm going to have to take them somewhere and sell those gold bars for cash. So it's slow, but it's also safe because nobody can get those bars. No government can freeze my bank account, right? So it's kind of like that. But what we're seeing is that what starts as a store of value, it's just gold, I can't use it to buy Starbucks coffee, but it's a place I can park my value, store my value. We're starting to see those use cases with Bitcoin. And that's really where it starts. Decentralized currencies like Ethereum, they're good places to store value, but eventually it can grow into other areas. And this is why we see a lot of dApps. dApps being decentralized applications are really starting to fail, because we're trying to see all these dApps, all these decentralized applications start up, but what are they prioritizing? Are they prioritizing the key benefits of decentralization, of censorship resistance, of immutability? If you don't need those factors, why are you willing to have something that just runs slower, right? It just doesn't make sense, right? So what we want to look for as investors is we want to understand this trend of trust. We want to understand the need to have a trusted environment or a trustless system. And then we want to look for other cryptocurrencies, maybe they're dApps, but we want to look that they're fundamentally embracing these advantages, all right? Because if you don't need these advantages, what are you doing anyway? Why don't you just have a regular database? Now, like I said, I have videos that talk about technology cycles and the 4 phases. So there's other videos. If you have questions about that, leave me comments. And if you're liking this content, by the way, make sure you give me a thumbs up. You knew I do these videos only for you, and your thumbs up let me know what you like, and it helps me bring more content to you. So make sure you give me a thumbs up, leave me comments below. But, tech adoption follows a predictable 4-phase cycle. And really, it's predictable, but the best projects are always the ones that are going to move the fastest. And we're going to start to see the adoption first, but really it's going to have these key characteristics because that's what we need adopted. Ones that are trying to prioritize speed, we don't need speed if it sacrifices these key benefits. This chart here shows that each new technology cycle has a faster rate of adoption. So for example, the telephone took about 70 or 80 years to reach an 80% adoption, whereas the internet did in about 15. So each new technology cycle adopts faster. Like it took about 50 years for the TV to reach about 80% adoption, but VCRs only took about 15% because people already had TVs. So it was easy to add the VCR, right? So we know that each technology cycle happens faster. If the internet did it in about 15 years, we think that blockchain can do it in less. So that's definitely something we'll keep an eye on. But overall, what I just tell people is just to be patient. Problem is everybody's expecting way too much, way too soon. This is a brand new technology. Yes, Bitcoin is about 10 years old, but most cryptocurrencies are really only about 2 years old. And so really this movement is very young. And what I've seen time and time again through business, through life, through investments is that people really overestimate what can be done in a short amount of time, but they underestimate what can be done over a long period of time. All right. And so just because it hasn't taken over the world in 2 years doesn't mean it's not going anywhere. You've overestimated what can be done in a short period of time, but you underestimate what can be done in a long time. So you can see in this chart right here from mid-2017, the decentralized currencies hardly had any role. By mid-2018, we saw the decentralized currencies basically filling all these roles for cash, central bank roles, brokerage accounts, derivative accounts. And I believe that by middle of 2019, we'll have decentralized cryptocurrencies in every single one of these roles. So it's moving pretty quickly when you can step back and take a look and put some perspective into it. But be patient, all right? And then the other thing that's super important for our investments is we want to make sure that we're only getting into ones that embrace the things that are unique. Like I said, we know it's slower, okay? We get that. So why would I do that, right? Again, permissionless, trustless, censorship-resistant immutability. So we want things that are using the platform, using these things in a unique way, not trying to do something old. We want companies that are actually going to create something new. You have to understand that most ideas are usually too early. They're not too late. And what that means is like in the early days of the internet, we saw a bunch of startups that started up with great ideas and failed because they were a little bit too early. But you just have to trust that this market will finally come. Like I always say, I'm a student of history. I believe that studying history tells us the future. It doesn't always repeat, but it rhymes. I think it was Mark Twain that said that. And what history shows us is that you never bet against the entrepreneurs. You never bet against the developers. It was private companies that built everything worthwhile, that built the railroads, that designed the cars, that built the internet. And I believe, given enough time, they're going to make it. They're going to speed it up. They're going to scale it, right? I mean, think about it. We went from the Wright brothers flying the very first plane ever to putting someone on the moon in 65 years, right? Think about that. When you can just step back and look. Now, when from the first plane, Kitty Hawk, to get in a commercial flight seemed like forever, but then it starts to grow exponentially. It's what we call a J curve. Think about this, the iPhone, it's only 10 years old. We've only had the internet in your hand for 10 years, right? So a decade, 10 years, it's an eternity in technology. So again, patience, right? That's key. I just think that builders are going to build. Like I said, you never bet against builders. You never bet against entrepreneurs. Right now, today, we have millions of developers that are currently building technologies, they're building innovations on blockchain technology, on decentralized cryptocurrency technology. They're taking all these frustration points that we have, they're looking at all these problems, and they're coming up with solutions, right? Ways that we can minimize trust, ways that we can move into permissionless and trustless environments. Now, a lot of them are gonna fail. A lot of these cryptocurrencies are gonna fail. I mean, I think there's like 2,000 of them, and probably 90% of them will fail. But more will come, many more are gonna succeed, and we're just getting started. I mean, we're just getting started. So, hope that makes sense. If you like this video, make sure you give me some thumbs up, subscribe, hit the button or hit the bell to get notified when I put new videos up. If you also really like this content, help me get the word out. Share these videos, man. We need to get more people watching these videos, so please share the video, give me a thumbs up, and leave me comments. I like to engage with everybody in the comments below. And that's it. To your success. I'm out.